Hey, we're live, Feathers Elite Pigeon Auctions at the Loft of Silvercreek, Bill Weima. Our first North American ever in the auction season. It's chilly, it's cold, it's damp. We're doing a small loft tour. It's not the nicest weather out. With a great guy, Bill Weima. Knows how to prepare pigeons for racing, for breeding. He loves all aspects. Great pigeon man. I think he's a good ambassador. He not afraid to give birds to people, let people try. He's not afraid to go out and test birds, buy birds. Let's swing over so you guys can see the man himself. Let's try this again because, hey, what can I say? Hey, Bill.
Hey, hi guys.
He's back again. What do we got in our hands here, Bill?
Ryan and I were just talking about some of the breeders, and this is a bird that I retired off of the race team, call him Gold 95. And as you often see with a really good racer, there's an interesting story behind him.
Right.
This bird was bred by a good friend of mine in Utah, Joe Namelka. It's a daughter of what was his foundation hen.
Okay.
Your camera's going a little funky.
Oh, the camera wanted to check your ventilation on your ceiling, which we see behind there. Great ventilation, guys. Remember, this is live. But, so you got from Joe Namelka.
So Joe sent the bird up to fly, and I sent him bands down for an East Course race called the WW Gold Band, and Joe sent me up a half a dozen birds, and this is one I really liked. And I had a really bad toss that year, and he ended up going 30 miles the wrong direction.
Now, tosses, bad tosses.
Yep.
We're going to start talking about a bit of your training and your feeding methods because you're different. Right. And we can get into this, back into this story.
Yep.
How do you train pigeons, Bill?
I believe in hard training. I start them off easy. I'm careful to get them going, but once they're going, I train every day I can train. I train them hard. I put lots of miles on them.
Your young birds you're talking.
Young birds,
now,
yes.
how many weeks prior to the first race will you start training?
Road training, maybe 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
4 weeks before the first. Yeah.
And we were talking earlier that you noticed, because you darken.
Right.
You notice that your darkened birds don't give you a lot of, before training, a lot of loft flying?
No, the darkened birds, I think it's two parts. I think they get a little bit lazy because they're locked up and they're going through the darkening, and they don't like to fly a lot when they're molting.
Right.
And then they come out of the dark mature. They're sexually mature. The cocks want to chase the hens. They're not interested in flying. They just want to be down and playing. And I think pigeons need to be happy, and that's.
So are you a flagger?
No.
You just let them be pigeons.
Yeah.
If they want to fly,
yeah.
they fly.
Yeah.
And you normally, what will they normally give you? 20, 25 minutes?
That's about it.
That's about it.
Minutes, yeah.
And then you're not afraid. You start taking them down the road.
Down the road 5 miles 3 or 4 times, 10 miles 3 or 4 times, 20, 30. I got a 30-mile spot I hit them at a lot. After that, they'll go 50 a couple times, and they'll go 75. And after I've had a couple 75-mile tosses on them, they're ready to go to the first race, which for me is 150. 150
miles your first race. So before the first race, roughly, is there a mile number you want to hit? Like you say, I want to hit it. I make sure they've been trained 300 miles.
No, I don't really have a set number. I watch how they come and what they do, and I like to see them experience some bad weather, maybe a little fog, a little drizzle, a few of those things before they.
And you're not worried about taking them in bad weather training?
No.
Once they sort of know their way.
Once they know what they're doing, yeah. They're going to run into it on race day. I'd rather them run into it 50 miles from home or 30 miles from home than 150 miles from home.
And also, when I asked you, you don't train. You're not a guy that I'll train every morning at 7 a.m.
No.
You will train them morning, midday.
Morning, midday. I mean, typically I'll try to go in the morning, but if you go up in the morning and it's raining and it doesn't clear up until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll run home, grab them at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and go.
Right.
I think it's important to train them in the heat of the day because they're going to have to fly in it.
Right.
And a lot of guys don't like to train in the heat of the day. A lot of guys are worried on race day to get them up early so they don't have to fly in the heat of the day. They're gonna have to face everything.
Now, here's another question: when you start training your young birds, do you still let them out for a loft fly?
No.
No. You're done with that.
No, they're done. Road training, I think it's a mental thing. They need to learn that, yeah, when they're in the basket, it's a race.
Home and in.
Home and in, home and in, home and in.
Right.
I don't want to play around.
Now, let's say you're training, because I know we had a story here where we're going to bring up with the guy you had in your hand.
That's fine.
You have a bad toss. You take them 25 miles. Oh, shit. They've taken all day to come home.
Right.
What do you do the next day? What do you go right back at them?
I would take them back to the previous station. If like, say, for example, I have a bad toss from 20 miles, and they've had several good tosses from 10, I'll take them back to 10.
Right.
I'll get them a couple of tosses from 10 miles, make sure that their confidence is back, and then I'll take them back to the 20 mile, and if they come good, I'll still advance them from there.
Okay, so you're all about building the confidence.
Build the confidence.
Right. Okay.
Conditions one thing, mental confidence, mental strength is another.
Right. And with this guy, you felt this is a bird, because we talked about him.
He was lost as a young bird. Went to another flyer's loft. That flyer got a hold of the band secretary. I found out a couple weeks later that he had the bird. Went to pick the bird up. He was in a section with a hen.
Right.
Happy to stay there. I had a heck of a time. It took me all year to get him broke to stay here. He flew back and forth between my loft and the other guy's loft several times. I talked to Jonah Melka, told him, he said, stupid pigeon, just get rid of it. He said, and I'm like, no, I think he's a smart pigeon. He just got to get his head screwed on straight.
Right.
Last race of the year, I got him straightened around. He was my fourth bird home. As a yearling, 7 times out of 10 races, he was home first.
Okay, so this was a bird that one top pigeon man cast away, and you gave him, I guess you could say, second, third, even fourth chance.
Yeah, I mean, I knew he was smart. I could see that, knowing where home was here, knowing where the hen was at the other guy's loft.
And he was going back and forth.
He was going back and forth.
He was pre-training.
Now, luckily, the other fellow moved, so the lofts were gone, the bird was gone.
And he had to
and that's what really straightened him around. And and then he always came with 1 or 2 other pigeons in my first drop, and I called him the gentleman because he stood on the landing board and wait for the other 2 to trap or the other 1 to trap. And he was just a super flyer, so I stocked him. So, and he's got a youngster in the sale.
And has he bred good for you?
He's bred good. He's been with the same hen now for 2 years, and bred very, very good pigeons for me.
Okay. So, getting back to training, you're not afraid to give birds a chance if they make mistakes. You're about second chances, and it's paid off right here.
Right.
Once the youngsters get to the first race, how hard will you train them? Because they got to go about for you 8 weeks. You like to take the same birds every week.
Every week.
Your young birds, week, yes. You don't rest them.
No, they go every week. Every bird goes every week, and if you're, there might be a couple of birds if you're trying to set them up for a special race, but by and large in the combine, every bird goes every week, and I train even between races. They're training every day.
Okay. Every day.
Every day.
So you will, birds come back from a race on Saturday.
Right.
150 miles, maybe you're right up at the top, maybe you're 20 minutes off the pace.
Yep.
You're going back training Sunday.
Maybe not Sunday, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they'll go.
Even Fridays?
Even Friday, they'll go.
And when you say, I know some people say train. In Europe, the word train means loft fly a lot of the time.
They're in the basket down the road.
And do you have is it one spot, or will you go, 30 miles, 40 miles, 50 miles? What do you?
They typically will go to the same spot, mostly. Maybe 1 or 2 spots, but.
You got 2 spots you like?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Friday toss might be a little shorter, but it's still a toss.
Okay.
Right.
And you found they don't need the rest? I guess you've tried resting them and you've tried training them, or do you always train them?
I've always trained them, right?
Okay.
I think, and nutrition's part of that. If you're going to train hard, you've got to feed appropriately. You've got to give them the right supplements.
Right, and when we were talking about feeding, I think you feed very it's interesting the way you feed.
Right.
You want how do you feed your youngsters before the races?
Well, basically, I don't change the type of feed they get every day. They'll get the same feed every day. I'll change the amount.
So you measure?
Yeah, yes and no. I don't really measure. I do it more by feel, by how the birds are feeling. They need a little more. They need a little less. If the birds get a little heavy, I'll train them a little harder.
Right.
Till they get to the condition of the weight that you want.
Right.
So when you find a feed that you like, and I used my own blend of feed for several years. The last 2 years we've used Versalaga feed that Ryan sells, and it works fine. It's interesting. I believe that you feed carbs and fats at different times prior to the race.
Carbs and fats.
Right.
Okay. So you'll build more carbs at the beginning.
Well, carbs typically take 12 to 24 hours to digest.
Okay. So if you're eating carbs, it's going to take my body or the pigeon's body.
Right.
They don't start really getting anything out of it. It takes them 12 to 24 hours.
12 to 24 hours. Fats take 40 to 48 hours. So my thinking is there's really no point in feeding a pigeon high fats on Friday if you're shipping it Friday night for a Saturday race, because it's not going to get any use out of that feed until after it gets home.
Right.
48 hours later or 40 hours later.
Right. So that's when it starts to burn that.
That's when that fat is available for it to use.
Right. Now how did you I mean, this is pretty interesting. And I was interested by it. How did you come up with it?
I talked to the guys in Europe that work for Matador Feeds and the big feed companies.
So you're going to feed your fatty feeds in that middle of that week.
Right. I would feed them. Yeah. Again, depending on the distance of the race you're going to fly, but on a typical race up to say 300 miles, I'm going to feed high fats on Thursday. All day Thursday, all they want.
No carbs. Very little.
Very little carbs.
You want them to eat fat.
Friday morning, I might give them a little bit of carbs. By noon, nothing. But typically on Friday, I wouldn't feed them anything.
So you like them to go empty.
They like them to go empty, right? And my thoughts on that are, if a pigeon weighs, let's say 12 ounces, and you feed it 1.5 ounces of feed, it's carrying 10% of its body weight.
It's lugging it
in its digestive system at some point of digestion that it can't use. It hasn't turned it into usable energy.
So you like to basically send them so when they come out on that Saturday morning,
they're empty.
Right empty of feed.
They're empty. The process of digesting consumes calories.
Right.
It consumes energy. So I don't want my bird digesting food when it's flying. And I don't want my bird carrying undigested food in it while it's flying.
Right.
It's like putting a
weight on you.
It's like putting a knapsack on your back with 10 pounds in it and going for a marathon, right? You're not going to do that. So feed in a way that the bird can utilize what it's been given. Keep it as light as possible.
Right.
And it's got less work to do.
Right. So no hauling in extra weight. That's
right.
One thing you're looking for. So you're going to feed your fats and carbs at the beginning of the week. It's a mix.
Right.
Mix. But
right.
Thursday
is high fat.
All day long.
High fat all day long.
All day long.
Yep.
Okay. So they'll come back from training.
Right.
Could be 50 miles.
Right.
They're going to eat fat.
Right.
They're going to eat fat all day.
Right.
Friday morning, if you're feeling they need a little bit, you're going to give them only a little bit of carbs.
Right.
And there's times where you won't give them anything.
Yeah. Most times I'll give them nothing. Maybe if it's a 3 or 350, I might throw them a little bit of corn Friday morning.
Right.
But typically after eating all they want Thursday, they don't even look at the feed Friday morning.
Okay. All right.
Right.
So, and when they come home from the race, what are you feeding them?
Just good protein.
Protein.
Right. Fats, just a good balanced feed.
Yeah, mixture. So they'll have a mixture of carbs and fats.
Right.
Everything in it. Let them pick what they want.
Right.
What about vitamins, electrolytes, medicines, or
Vitamins. I use the Castle products. I've been using them for several years. Even before David launched the acidifier product, I used it for a couple of years in a test phase.
Right.
And it has it acidifies the water to get the pH level where you want it for pigeons, which is 4.8. It has prebiotics, probiotics, whatnot in it.
And how often do you use that?
Every day.
Every day.
It's in their water every day.
Every day. So from the time you wean the babies, it's in it all the time.
It's in the water every day.
Every day.
Breeders get it. The racers get it. Everything gets it every day.
Every day. Okay.
He's also got a couple of products, a young bird developer, which you feed to them after they're weaned.
Right.
He's got a breeder's advantage, which you feed to it. They're all powders that you throw a little oil on the feed, you add the powder to it. So
it goes onto the feed, not in the water.
Not in the water.
And you've been using them for a while?
Yeah, 4 years. Last year he developed an oil, which is an oregano and hemp-based oil. I started using that this year for an oil, and I don't think it's really too critical what oil you use.
Right.
But I like this oil. It smells really nice. It's oregano and hemp, which are both known to be good things for birds, and that's what I use as an oil base. And it works well. The all-in-one grit that you sell at Versalaga, I've been using it, and the birds love it.
Are you a heavy medicator?
No, I try not to medicate at all. Prior to racing, they'll get a respiratory treatment, they'll get a canker treatment. During racing, unless there's a problem, I don't want to use anything.
Don't want to use anything. Just natural.
Just natural, right?
Okay. And another thing we were talking here, because it's winter, where are we now? We're just about in January.
Right.
Came over. All I see is barley.
Right.
Your birds are all on barley.
Right.
Why?
Barley's a good feed. I get barley from a place that makes seed barley, so it is the cleanest, best quality barley I've ever seen.
Right.
I give the birds barley, and Brian and I have handled a bunch of them. They get fat.
They get fat.
They'll get fat on the stuff, and it's people say, "Oh, you can't feed barley. There's not enough in it." I've done it for years, and the birds are fine. They're good.
I mean, so we did some we did all the photos of your birds, but all those birds were all on barley.
Right.
And when you brought them over, the feather quality was right at the top.
Right.
The auction birds right at the top. We did the photos of some of your breeders right at the top.
Yeah.
And all they were on was on barley.
Yeah.
There's nothing special.
No. They get barley, they get acidifier in the water.
And it's not that you're trying to cut any costs down.
No.
If you had $100 million, you'd still have them on barley.
Right. And again, barley's a basic feed, but I think it's a good feed. And the way I look at it is if you have to feed a pigeon $30, $35, $40 feed,
right,
for it to stay in decent shape, that's a high maintenance bird. Okay?
Yeah,
and if it's a high maintenance bird, it's not going to survive my style of training.
right.
So, when we get cold winters here and it gets darn cold, we get 2, 3, 4 weeks straight of minus 20 plus weather. These birds get nothing but barley.
And guys,
the weak birds, they're gone.
And guys, what he means by minus 20, in real layman's terms, put your torpedo drinkers outside. Within about 15 minutes, they're almost frozen solid.
Right.
That's the type of cold we're talking about. And you still got them on barley.
Right.
And that's it.
That's it.
Some of the Kessel products will be in the water.
Right.
Barley. And you did say just before you're going to put them together, about what, 3-4 weeks before?
3-4 weeks before, the hens will get more feed. They'll get a mix. Barley's lacking some things that they need to produce eggs.
Right.
To give you egg quality. So a month before breeding, I'll give the hens a good mixture of feed. Add a lot of other supplements and vitamins and stuff to it. The cocks don't need it.
Right.
So
that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, basically in a nutshell, you keep it pretty simple.
Yep.
You train them hard.
Train them hard. I expect a lot of them, and I learned an important lesson many years ago when I was training myself for martial arts. My first sensei told me something that I'll never forget. Because we trained.
Just wait. After you tell me, don't hit me.
We trained very hard. We ran 8 miles every morning. We trained 3 hours every night, and he said to me, you can come up against a fighter that has more skill than you, but if you have better conditioning than him, all you have to do is survive about 2 minutes of his best, and then you can beat him. And I've never forgot that.
He's taken that. He's brought that into the pigeon world, guys.
Right. People can say what they want. You always hear it. when you're successful, you've been drugging, you've been cheating, you do this, you do that. The simple fact is, you outwork the competition.
And guys, I'm going to say, this man is a hard worker. He lives about, I'd say, in road miles. It takes an hour and a half to get to his place, from my place to his. We had clock issues this year. He runs his own business. He trains his own birds. He had the time to come to our club, Pioneer Club, fix the clocks with us. He never complained once. He trains his birds hard. He's met me to give me his birds to take them for a toss. He's a hard worker, guys. Look how he's dressed. His hands are dirty. You work hard.
Yeah.
You're a hard-working guy.
Yeah.
This doesn't come easy.
No.
And pigeon raising, it doesn't come easy. You put a ton of work in.
Right.
And I don't think it's the amount of money you've spent. You've spent good money on good birds.
Right.
But you put the same effort into those birds.
Right.
And I think that's where it's really, you come to the top. And you've flown the different courses, you've won. You've won in one loft races, and you've won.
Right.
Basically, you're an all-around pigeon man.
Yeah, I try to be.
And
I think to be successful in pigeons, I mean, you're talking about small percentages to get better, right? I mean, you buy an import for $5,000 or $10,000, it's not going to be heads and shoulders above any other pigeon.
Right.
It might be 2% better.
Right.
It might be 1% better. It might not be any better, right? Mm-hmm. But if you can add a bunch of 1 or 2% together, you get a little bit from the training, you get a little bit from the genetics, you get a little bit from the feeding. All of a sudden, you're maybe 5% better than the competition in the race.
That's right. So what would be your number one tip to anybody? If the one tip, there's only one before we cut this off. Bill, what's the tip? What is the one thing you want people to know? Jeez, I've got him on the spot.
It's hard to say one thing, but I mean, you got to have health and you got to train hard. That's my. They got to be healthy. You got to train them hard.
Healthy and train them hard, and good quality pigeons.
Good quality pigeons, but even mediocre quality pigeons, if they're healthy and they're trained properly, they're still going to give you some success.
Okay, so you're more about the health and the hard work.
Right.
Okay, so guys, Silvercreek. We've asked him a bunch of questions. He's answered them. He's held nothing back, right even from the barley. I don't know if you knew that one was coming. But then he came back with the sensei, which I thought I was going to get the hit. But I want to thank you, Bill, for taking the time. Again, we're in his stock cock section just before they're getting breeding. They're on the just the regular purchase. Lots of music. They're ready to breed. They're on the barley, guys. Again, like we say, we're on the barley. There's no bullshitting here. Bill, I want to thank you for taking the time to let us come over and do this.
I appreciate it.
And if you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to ask Bill. My camera jammed up a bit, but that's okay. Don't be afraid to ask Bill. He's always open. Send him an email. Give us a call. We'll put you on to Bill if you don't already know him. Silvercreek Loft. He's always at the top. Hey, congratulations this year in the... wasn't the California Classic. It was the
Royal Cup.
Royal Cup. You were equal first.
Right. Yeah, we had a good one there, and hey, shouts out to John Timmerman. I think he runs one of the best one-off races in the country.
Yeah, I agree with you. Very, very hard course, hard-nosed pigeon man,
Right.
Trains them right.
Right. Again, you need smart pigeons. Those birds got to navigate those mountain passes and canyons and deserts, and if they make a mistake, they're done.
And guys, Bill keeps saying it, smart pigeons, that's what he's looking for. And I think you've got smart pigeons.
I hope so. They're smarter than I am anyway.
All right, guys, this is Ryan from Feathers Elite. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Check out the auction. It's on the. It's up this week. www.featherselitepigeonauctions.com. We're gonna let Bill go and we're gonna warm up. Thanks, guys.